those things feel good. We do them because we like to do them. And if we have to let those things go, and it's the same with the strawberry shortcake and all the chocolate things. We do that because they taste good, because we like it, and we have comfort foods that make us feel better about ourselves. And to let that go is difficult.
Yeah.
You really have to want to. And your intellect will want to just until it stops wanting to, which won't take too long, because you don't want to give up the things you like. So it's a matter of your attachment to things, which is, of course, ego. And that attachment often comes out of fear for people. And that's why we have such a hard time keeping our promises to ourselves, whether it's a New Year's resolution or just one day you decide you need to lose weight because you look in the mirror and it's not a pretty sight. And you say, well, that's not healthy. I should lose weight. And for the next 2 or 3 months, you probably, are pretty good at it. But the point is, 6 months later, are you really still good at it? And a year or 2 years later, have you kind of gone back to where you were in the first place? That's the difference between an intellectual commitment and a commitment at the being level. Commitment down at the root of who you really are. And if you get these commitments at the root of who you are, at that being level, then you will stick to them, because it's not just something you're doing because you think you should. It's something you really want to do. It's something that's important to you to do. And then all the little things that get in the way, like I really like my strawberry shortcake, and I like my tea, and I like watching soap operas during the day, all that stuff just kind of disappears, because that's no longer important, because you really want to, do what it is you want to do, your exercise, or you're losing weight, or your meditation. A lot of people do the same with meditation. Oh, I should meditate. And for a month they try and they do it pretty regularly, and then it gets less regular and less regular to where they're kind of back where they were. So we tend to not make much progress because we're working from the intellect. That's not a very strong motivator. It only motivates us as long as we're focused on it. As soon as our focus slips, it slips away. That's kind of, I think, the key thing. And I have found that even if you have, a physical addiction, say to nicotine, you want to quit smoking. Of all the smokers in the world, probably at least half of them decide that they'd like to quit, at least once a year or more, because it's an expensive habit, and mostly people around you don't like it, and it makes you go outside when it's cold, to stand on your front porch and smoke while everybody else is inside having fun. So it's kind of a negative socially now, whereas 30 years ago it wasn't. But now it's kind of a negative social thing. But people keep doing it anyway. They keep saying, well, yeah, I should quit. And they may quit for a few months, but they tend to come back to it because, again, it's intellectual. If it's a being level decision, I no longer want to be addicted, to nicotine. I no longer want to be a drug addict where I have to do this thing, otherwise I get nervous or feel bad or whatever. I want to quit. And if you really feel that way, you'll find that the withdrawals go to zero. You don't have withdrawals. You don't have I really want a cigarette and I need all the willpower, and the willpower isn't quite enough. That doesn't happen. When you really want to do it, the withdrawals disappear. It's when your intellect says you should do it, but you don't really want to at a deep down level. It's just your intellect trying to push you. Now your withdrawals are terrible. You see other people smoking and you want to smoke. You get that cup of coffee after the meal and you want to smoke, a cigarette with that cup of coffee, and the withdrawals just nag at you and nag at you. And months and months go by and the withdrawals are still there. It's like there's this terrible price to pay to quit. That's only there because you're quitting at the intellectual level, not at the being level. That being level is still saying, give me a hit of my favorite drug. I want the sugar, I want the nicotine, I want the alcohol, whatever it is that you're addicted to. Your being level still wants it, doesn't want to quit. Your intellect is trying to impose, but you should quit. That doesn't work. So if you really want to make a New Year's resolution or any time a resolution, first you have to decide whether or not you really want to do it, or whether you just want to pretend that you're doing it to make yourself feel better about yourself. You see, that's, I think, the biggest difference between those who succeed and those who don't.